Chris Paul has made his decision, and it's a return to the Los Angeles Clippers. What does this mean for the Clips? A very old but very talented team now heading into the season. Where do they stack up? And a whole lot more on today's episode. I'm Trevor Lane. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the channel. Turn on those notifications as well. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Donnie, maybe not a surprise, but it's official. Shams Charania reporting Chris Paul, 21st season, likely his last season it'll be with the Clippers.
Yeah, I think if you're Chris, you probably only really were able to go back to one of these teams that you've been to before, them or Phoenix. Maybe there was prior to the stuff yesterday where the Lakers still had an opportunity. I don't think he would have gone there, but I think for him, you really wanted to go to a place you had already been to maybe get that farewell tour, with this probably being his last year. But above all else, going back to a place where you can be around your family more consistently, which is his number one priority for this last season. I think he chose the right decision to make, or had made the right decision, excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing the veteran point guards going home. Damian Lillard going back to Portland. Now Chris Paul going back to the Clippers. And again, family being a big factor. And I don't blame him for that. That's great for Chris Paul to be a veteran minimum deal here with the Clippers. We'll take a look at the roster in just a second. But the Suns were out there. But as Brett Siegel notes, there was never a doubt that Chris Paul was going to return to the Clippers this offseason, despite rumors linking him to other teams. So it seemed like this was always the preference. And again, with his family in Los Angeles, Phoenix is close, but it's not the same as being in the same city. So this does make a lot of sense for CP3 as the way to close out his career with the Clippers. I guess the question now is, can he go out a winner? Can this Clippers team win in the Western Conference? You know what I mean? Like, can they actually, because that's what's eluded him for his career. Is this the right move for him in order to win a championship?
So I'm gonna say this. I absolutely do think that if things break their way, the Clippers could be a really good team, and if things further break their way, I mean, there's a first time for everything. Maybe they do wind up on top. I don't know. I don't know the future, but I know that the general audience on the channel would disagree with that vehemently, and would also say that everywhere Chris Paul's gone, he's never done anything. So there's that. But I do like the roster.
He's a 12-time All-Star. Like,
that's the thing about it too, right? Like, but he's never been able. He's gone to the finals once. He's struggled to get to that stage. But the reality is like the vast majority of NBA players don't get to the point where they can win a championship. Like, that's not, like that's not really like a knock, I think. But anyway. Yeah, like I really do like the roster. We do have the concerns about age and all that stuff, but they're going to need the injury bug to stay away from that team. They're going to need another healthy Kawhi season. They're going to need James Harden not to, crap the bed in the playoffs like he sometimes does. And maybe with the right matchups, things could go pretty well. But I think if your options were only them or Phoenix potentially, then sure. Like I think he could have gone maybe to Milwaukee and played a bigger role, but does he have a clearer path to winning a championship specifically? Probably not. I mean, there's not a lot of places he could have gone to aside from maybe like a team like OKC, which actually would have been I think a sleeper place for him to go because of early Chris Paul stuff with him going there. I think they would have liked having him back, but I don't know. I don't really think there was anywhere else he could have really gone.
Well, certainly an easier path through the Eastern Conference had he gone to Milwaukee. We know they've been looking for a guard. Maybe they wind up being a landing spot for Russell Westbrook. We'll see how that all plays out. But I can't say definitively a better path with Milwaukee than he would be with the Clippers. Not enough to where it would negate the family situation, right? With being close to family in LA. Milwaukee, obviously, you're spending another year far away from family. I can't say that he's got a significantly better shot of getting there with the Bucks than with the Clippers. So I get why he would pick the Clippers. I guess the question then becomes, though, what happens here with him in the rotation? I would think this is him who he's historically liked to start. Coming off the bench has not been something that really sat well with him. I can't imagine he's going to start on this Clippers roster, though, not with James Harden, not with Brad Beal. You can honestly make an argument that despite how big the names are, that maybe Chris Dunn should start in the backcourt because the defensive side of the ball that he brings, Harden, Paul, and Beal, not exactly known as top-notch defensive players. So what happens with them in this Clippers rotation?
Yeah, I just pulled up his page on Basketball Reference. The only time, just on a quick snapshot, he's actually been a bench player was that stint in Golden State.
Right.
He's always been a starter. At the start of this offseason, that was something that was reportedly high in his interest. He wanted to go somewhere. He wanted to be close to family, wanted to be a starter, wanted to contend, of course. I don't know if he's able to accomplish all of that in LA. I don't know if he can be a starter for the Clippers with what they have there. Harden is their starting point guard. I would assume Beal is going to go there and be a relatively high usage starting guard for them as well. I just don't know if they have the ability to do that for him. And if I'm Chris Paul, I'm mostly okay with that because unless he's starter in name only, like a Keith Bogans type thing, he may
Sure.
be fine coming off the bench anyway, because you're probably trying to pace him and pace several of these guys around like 20 minutes per game and just try to lean on the depth overall. And that's probably the best case to try to get these guys fresh for the stretch run as well. So I think that's probably the best scenario for him. They've got a lot of guard depth.
Yeah, they do have decent guard depth. We'll take a look at that roster in just a minute. Did play 82 games last season, but not, I wouldn't expect him to do that again, but was remarkably healthy last season. The Clippers, though, a team that has historically dealt with a lot of health issues. When you talk about their guard depth, you've got guys like James Harden. You've got now Chris Paul. You've got Brad Beal. You've got Chris Dunn. In fact, you still have Bogdan Bogdanovic, who they traded for last year. He's $16 million effectively in expiring money, zero guaranteed for next year because he's a team option for next season. He could actually wind up being, because I think he's probably the odd man out in the rotation right now, he could wind up being a $16 million trade chip here for the Clippers. The Clippers may not be done dealing. I think they've had a really good offseason. You add John Collins, you add Brad Beal. Yes, losing Norman Powell hurt, but Brad Beal replaces him. You add Brook Lopez out there in free agency. Now you've got two true big centers to put in there that can both protect the rim, and Ivica Zubac and Brook Lopez. 48 minutes of solid center play potentially for the Clippers, plus John Collins to offer flexibility. And then you've got a $16 million expiring contract to potentially play with as they get into the season and they see what it is that they still need. So I think the Clippers, given how old this team is and given the frailties that are going to come with that and the injury concerns and everything else that is going to be going on around them, I think they've done a really nice job building out this roster. Now, the Lakers fan in me doesn't want to say those things, but I think they've done a nice job in the context of we're going to be an older team with a short window of just 2 years. That's all we're going to have to put this team together, maybe even less because they have built in some pivot points there. Bogdanovic, non-guaranteed. Brook Lopez, non-guaranteed. Well, team options, I should say, for next year. Same thing with Batum. James Harden, not fully guaranteed for next year either. This could really just be a 1 year window. But in those parameters, I think they've done a nice job building out this roster.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like the roster. I wouldn't bet on them to come out. I think that the West is just so stacked, but I think the West now over the last couple of seasons and heading into this next one more than for quite a while anyway, the West now is at a state where it's like rock, paper, scissors in terms of matchups. Like who are you playing against matters more than for a long time. And maybe they get in a situation where they're in a favorable matchup or two and things could be good. But that's me just being optimistic. I generally take the optimistic approach when we talk about 99% of teams. Somebody commented that yesterday, and I just wanted to clarify that. I typically be nice. General. Yeah, I'm typically nice to the teams here because I'm trying to look at it from the perspective of, things going their way ultimately. Sure. And I think that for the Clippers, that is a possibility, of course. Again, I think the West is really stacked and I wouldn't necessarily bet it. I think they need a lot of things to go their way to even get to the point where it matters a lot. But, we talked about like health and all that stuff for this team. Who do you think is the X factor, for this roster?
The X factor for this Clippers team, it's easy to just say Kawhi because Kawhi, the
He's
difference
Kawhi, right?
between fully healthy Kawhi and him just being gone for the whole year, like either of those things is entirely possible. And it makes such a huge difference in your team and in your roster and how everything is going to play out. But when I really look at this Clippers roster and I look at what it is that they've gotten, what they need, I think Derrick Jones Jr. is going to matter a lot because your backcourt, I trust in Ivica Zubac. He had a great year last year. I trust in Brook Lopez. You know what you're going to get out of him. If Kawhi's healthy, which let's face it, if Kawhi's not healthy, you're not going anywhere anyway. But I think they need as many pieces as they can get on the floor that are going to help make up for the defensive deficiencies of Harden, Beal, Chris Paul. Yes, Chris Dunn is going to be really important, but a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. on the wing, being able to defend multiple positions, fly all over the court, that's going to be an important factor here for the Clippers as well. And I guess the big question becomes, where do they actually stack up in the West? So I've got OKC in a tier by themselves until somebody proves me wrong on that. I'm going to put the reigning champs at the top alone. I've got the Houston Rockets and Denver Nuggets in whatever order you want to put them in a tier, but with just the two of them as well, and then a bunch of other teams in the mix with the Clippers certainly in that third tier group. But do you think they've done enough? Because some people are making the argument that they're actually on the same level now as the Nuggets and the Rockets. So I think I've had great off seasons. The Clippers and other teams had a great off season. Do you think they're in that tier 2 grouping in the West, or are they still in tier 3 trying to make their way up to tier 2?
I mean, they finished with 50 wins, three-way tied for the third seed, record-wise anyway. I think that they are better than they were last year, right? And so with that being the case, I think I can understand making that argument, but I also can make that argument for a few teams because I think the Lakers are better than they were. They're better. Denver also is better. We talked about them a little bit. You have them in that tier. The Golden State Warriors could potentially maybe separate themselves if they ever make a move at some point. Who knows? So to take the cop-out answer, I'll say let's wait and see. But on paper, I think certainly they have had a great offseason, just name-wise. We haven't talked about Collins, adding him in as well, Beal, Chris Paul, Brook Lopez. Like, I actually really do like the additions. And all they lost was Eubanks and Powell. Like, they added in a bunch of stuff, re-signed Harden, Batum. I do like the roster. I need to see this team get to that point. Some of that's just a little bit because it's the Clippers, because we've been sold a story for the Clippers for forever, and it never really, so some of that's just that. But ultimately, though, I do like what they've done. I don't know if they've separated, though, in the way that some of the other teams did.
For a team
Particularly
that lost,
Houston, though.
For a team that lost one of their star level players in Chris Paul, or in Paul George, they've bounced back quite well. All things considered, they've done a nice job. But yeah, I can't put them in that upper tier yet until they prove it. Same thing with the Spurs. People want to tell me, oh no, the Spurs are tier 3 now in the Western Conference. They're right up there with all these other teams. No, they need to prove it. I need to see them on the floor. Yes, Dylan Harper is going to be good. He's a rookie right now. What's that going to look like? Are they going to bump up? Maybe they ultimately do, but I'm not going to put them there until we see them do it. Same thing with the Clippers. I need to see this team come together, stay healthy, and get out there and win games before I'm going to bump them up on the same level as Denver and Houston right now. But
yeah,
everybody, give us your thoughts. What do you think? The Clippers, they get Chris Paul. Where do they ultimately stack up in the Western Conference now that it looks like their roster, it appears to be complete? Give us your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe right here to the channel as well. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.